Hey, assalamu alaikum guys. This is the second video that I'm shooting in the series of art history and art and architecture history. And today I have this awesome board behind me to draw stuff on while I talk, so that you don't get bored. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see it. Okay, it's not a pentacle. Talking about symbolism, but anyway, today we're going to talk about certain symbolic buildings that are cropping up all over the Muslim world, and there's a certain shift in size compared to what they used to be like in history, which is, you know, the Kaaba. What is that? Like, I've stood in front of the Kaaba, so it's about 10 meters tall. And this humongous tower that propped up next to it, which has a golden needle that is 70 meters long. Just the needle that tells you what the time is. And it is made out of pure gold. The whole thing, solid pure gold, 70 meters of solid pure gold. You do the math for how many people that can feed, but we're not here to discuss the the ethics of this ridiculous amount of spending, and who on earth is actually not advising the Saudis correctly on how to spend their money. Well, anyway, this clock tower, by the way, has a beacon of light that flashes a multicolored disco-like scenario occurs every time the adhan goes off. So when the mu'adhin does the call to prayer, you know, this awesome light feature that they have on top of this clock tower starts to glow like a disco ball, like you're in Vegas or something, and you can see it from any point in Makkah. That's the idea, and it shoots out some Batman-like light to show you what direction the Qibla is in, no matter where you are in the city, because apparently compasses are a thing of the past, and you need a special feature when you're in the holy city of God. So this disco ball feature goes off every time the adhan goes off, which is very appropriate considering the fact that after every salah there is a janazah. You have this awesome disco feature to show that people have died. How appropriate. And then on top of that, you have this beacon of light shining Batman-esque to guide people to which direction they should pray in, because they've clearly lost the ability to tell where north is pointing. And who controls the center where all of this operates? Because, you know, this is pretty advanced technology to be able to do this 5 times a day. The company that owns the functionality of this clock tower is based in France. Yeah, that's right, France. The same country that banned the headscarf and pretty much every other strange, hateful, ridiculous, barbaric practice that comes out of this country first and foremost against all Muslims worldwide. So why is the clock tower right next to the holy city and shrine of Islam being controlled by these people, and why is the money being given to them every year to fund the functionality of this thing? I don't know. Okay, so this is in Mecca, which is the center of Islam. And you know, a couple of years ago, when the Kaaba was first built, it was just a plain brick building, and there was nothing, just hills, just loads of hills around it. And people would come, do the pilgrimage with their sacrificial animals. Yes, I have studied art, don't make fun of my animals. But basically, that is what it used to be. Now, what you have is a mosque that completely, you know, dwarfs the Kaaba itself, which is this little miskin thing on the inside. And if it's not bad enough that you have these gigantic doors leading you into the Kaaba, now you have these huge prison-like systems that allow people to circumambulate around the Kaaba for some ridiculous levels. And there's debates that, well, we have to have this huge system in place, otherwise people just won't be able to do tawaf in the numbers that they come into the Kaaba, which is like 2 million or so for Hajj just last year. But my question to you is, since when did we start going all Catholic and building upwards? Whereas what Islam has always focused on, interestingly enough, you can look at David Ajay's study of Muslim buildings in his book about public architecture. Muslims have always been known to build horizontally. They always build in this direction, whereas the Catholic Church always builds in this direction so that they have a nice view of everything from wherever they are. Whereas Islam has always been a lateral spread in its buildings, and it has a very modest appearance in all the traditional mosques that have ever been built. They, in the first few years of Islam, no matter if it was in Africa, the mud hut mosques, or if it was in China, the pagoda-style mosques, they didn't used to be taller than 2-3 levels. They didn't need to be. So why suddenly do we have to have, would it not be possible if you went to Hajj and you did tawaf, the Kaaba is here, circulate it like that? Instead of going upwards, why can't you just go around in bigger and bigger circles? Oh, I know why. Because the area around the Kaaba is seriously, seriously valuable real estate. So you have this much space preserved for the Holy Mosque, and everywhere around it, you have an empire of even larger, humongous 5-star hotels, so that you basically have no chance whatsoever to get even a glimpse of the Holy Mosque, let alone the cube inside it, unless you're absolutely a few feet next to it. So, it becomes a very prized, it's all an art of seclusion. You pay the money to go and see it. Whereas initially, the Kaaba was something you could see for miles and miles and miles, and it would only have the hills of Makkah that would basically come stand in your view, which were modest, if anything. There weren't even any trees, for goodness sake, let alone buildings. So it's interesting, and a thing to ponder on, why the Kaaba and the pilgrimage site for Islam is being compared to Disneyland in a lot of books. I studied this for my thesis, and it was really interesting to see Western critics of architecture comparing the Kaaba as a pilgrimage site to Disneyland. And though some of you might be really offended by that, I suggest you go to Hajj or Umrah this year or sometime around now to see how accurate this comparison is. Because when you're driving up to the Haram, it's great to see signs reminding you what kind of dhikr you have to do. But what you also see is humongous LED screens with 50% sale hitting you every 5 minutes. 70% off, whatever. Take your next right. And what are all these sale signs pointing towards? That's right. The biggest mall in the whole of Saudi Arabia is at the doorstep of Bab Abdul Aziz, which is the gate into the Masjid al-Haram, into the Kaaba. So you have the Kaaba, and then you have the biggest mall in the whole of Saudi Arabia right across the street from it. In gaping front view, you have Starbucks, and underneath it, you have Claire's Accessories, Marks and Spencer's. Yeah, go figure that one out. So what kind of logistic sense does it make? You have so much traffic coming into that area anyway, just from Hajj and Umrah. That so much so that people, during busy times can't even walk there. But why do you have the biggest mall in the area in exactly the same place? You get such congested traffic. It's absolutely, I really struggle to think of any other religious pilgrimage site that has a mall right next door to their pilgrimage site. Lourdes in France is in the middle of nowhere. Japanese temples, like, fair enough, Islam has a history of allowing commerce in holy grounds because it is a religion of practicality. But this, seriously, like, I don't know what's going on. But the reason, I mean, even I wouldn't have questioned even all of that if I hadn't had some sort of context attached to it. And that context is what my husband basically calls an American Navy base in the middle of the desert, Dubai and the UAE, Qatar, and all those other oil-rich countries. They basically have oil farm out of the ground, which they don't control the extraction or anything of, and then they end up building these ridiculously humongous, again, buildings that don't actually make any sense because they're all made of glass and concrete in the middle of the desert. Glass is something that you see a lot of in cold countries because the way that it insulates when heated. And to build in concrete in particular, it's like it has a huge thermal mass, it heats up, and basically you would just never build with concrete in a hot country because the sun would heat it up and it would just be hot all the time. And then to shove your buildings with air conditioning after you make it out of concrete and glass, it's just absolute stupidity, basically. And it makes no logical sense. So, and the architects that build in these countries know this. It's just that the people that are ordering the buildings have no idea. When I first went to Dubai in 2008, I went there without knowing much about architecture, being young and impressionable, thinking that I'm going to learn about all these cool modern Islamic buildings, Islamic buildings in Dubai. And I went there to learn about how to build. I worked there for 2 days before all my hopes were completely shattered. What I saw there was so horrifying that I promised myself I would never come to this country again. The metro in Dubai was so shocking. It was this humongous system that basically goes all over the place. You need seatbelts just to ride the metro, up and down, in and out through buildings. It was crazy. And it was being built for absolutely years. And on top of that, the company that I worked for had been in the conceptual stage of a hotel they were designing for 4 years. This is crazy. 4 years for the conceptual stage. Like, usually you spend two weeks, like, even if it's a complex building, but 4 years. And the reason for that was the awesome chef kept receiving the drawings and saying, oh, I just bought a huge plot of land on this side of the building, so extend it that way. Oh wait, I saw that, and I just bought another one here. Oh wait, now I want all of this to be 3 times the height because somebody else has built something huge here. Or, no, I want to be able to get views of the sea, so can you just make a part of it like that? And this conversation kept going on and on and on. You know, it's extremely, imagine the amount of drawings you make just to roll this dream out of that never got built. And on top of that, it's just ridiculous that they're able to waste so much paper, ink, time, like that. And it's no wonder that you have a place like the Canary Wharf of Saudi in Riyadh. It's a huge city made of all these crazy large buildings. It has its own metro system, again, a retarded metro system probably, though I haven't written in it. Nobody's written it because the entire area is completely empty. Only, the whole thing is built. It's the weirdest thing to see. I lived right next to this for a few months, but to be able to see a shiny, gorgeous, like, block of really expensive buildings, the whole place is completely empty. Imagine seeing something as big as Canary Wharf, a district as big as Canary Wharf, with no human being inside it. That's what this place is. It's an island, completely empty, with brand new, sparkly, shiny buildings, but nobody can afford to live inside it or rent the apartments. So, these are our resources, our planet's resources. And on top of that, the architects that build this stuff, we had them. in our school about like coming over and talking to us and saying stuff like, you know, it's okay you have to know where the money comes from, and you have to know who's willing to put up with rubbish buildings and pay a lot for it. And who do you think enough by that? Camel riding, always fighting, crazy type of immigrants. Perhaps if you can guess where those lyrics are from, that's supposed to be a kifaya, but that's really awful. But the point is that you know, they actually made open game of the fact that they charge their Arab clients from oil-rich countries ridiculous amounts of money for buildings that basically do not work and have a lifespan of about 15 to 30 years before they need some major rehaul and maintenance, so they can keep making money from them and making them look stupid. Because it doesn't take a genius to figure out a concrete building in an extremely hot country will not work, and you know, you're just going to have to keep building and bulldozing, building and bulldozing. They're just taking them for a ride. And with us not having this kind of background education about architecture, about building technology, we're allowing them to just manipulate us. And it's really sad. But the point is that, I really hope I don't get this on my face, but you know, what they have, the Arab world has a lot of money. And you know, do you know the impact that you could actually have with so much money? Instead of building islands of empty buildings and for commerce that never happens, and metro systems that nobody rides on and you just continue to take a car, and clock towers with gold needles 17 meters long, you know, instead of, and we're not even beginning to talk about all the Gucci, Prada. You guys know what kind of stereotype Khaliji people tend to have and what their buying habits are. You know, the way that Prada and all of these luxury brands have been revamped in recent years to appeal to that market proves where the money is coming from. The point is that, you know, intelligent investment of your money can change your entire nation. Andrew Carnegie, American businessman, you know, did you know that he actually defined which words went into the American lexicon and dictionary? That is where that man spent his money. He invested in which words to put in the dictionary. So basically, he used his money to dictate how people spoke in his country. And he was just a businessman. So if people actually use their money in an intelligent way, there's no telling the amount of influence they could have. But the reason why this is happening, wow, awesome. And the reason why this is happening, now you guys know why my clothes look the way they look when I'm painting. So the reason why this happens is basically because the money is coming from oil wealth, where it's just instant, like, you know, you own the land, you give us the contracts, you don't have to do any work, we'll just pump your pockets with money and free Ferraris and Lamborghinis. But if the new rich were to rise, like, you know, we had all those Wall Street protests, and I was at the ones in London in front of St. Peter's, and you know, there's protests, there's people saying, you know, we don't want to be run by people that are so psychotic. They have no idea what to do with money. They have no value for it, and they need to be told what to do properly. Yeah, but they're really not just going to listen to you if you scream and shout. Like, how do we, the common people that actually have 2 cents about us, manage to gain a substantial amount of wealth? And how do we then influence what's going on around us? You know, how do we become the new rich? That's the question that I think needs to be asked, rather than just moaning, because we already know what the problems are. And just go to Hajj and experience it to realize, like, the ridiculous, you know, if you just invested that money in maintenance, cleaning, wider streets, it would be a different experience for everyone. I don't know. I really think that there's probably a huge committees and all kinds of people who believe that our best brains only intent on giving working that play. And if we were truly independent and truly in charge of our own land and our own industries and our own even buildings and our own ideas, visions and dreams, then would our countries look the way they look like? Would they be built the way they're built? You know, it's just very strange to me that for all those hundreds of years, Muslims had a completely different approach to the way that they integrated in society, the way they built their buildings to be perceived by society, and now suddenly they're going in the direction of the Catholic Church. Why is that happening? I have no idea. I'd be interested to hear your comments. Leave them below. Thank you.